It's about 4-5 minutes film, and then we can start with the.
Yeah, don't worry.
Yeah.
Good morning, dear members, industry colleagues, and respected. A hearty welcome to all of you to today's web seminar on the benefits of Atma Nirbhar Bharat Initiative for the German companies, organized by the German Engineering Federation VDMA with the German Consulate of Mumbai. We hope all of you and your family and colleagues are safe and doing well. I'm Jamli John, based out of the Mumbai office of VDMA, and I'll be taking you through the session. Before we continue, I'd like to remind all of you that you can post your questions during the entire session under the chat box section, and this will be answered in the last leg of the web seminar. Next slide. VDMA, the Mechanical Engineering Industry Association, was founded in November 1892 and is the most important voice for the mechanical engineering industry. VDMA represents around 3,300 mostly medium-sized companies, making it the largest industry association in Europe, its members contributing to 78% as exports, which is equivalent to 232 billion euro production. Recognizing the very early significance of India as a future market for the member companies, India was one of the first overseas offices among the BRIC countries. VDMA remains to be the only German industrial association having well-established offices in India since several years, with our offices located in Noida, Kolkata, Mumbai, and Bangalore. Next slide. For today's web seminar, we will have the welcome address from Mr. Rajesh Nath, Managing Director of VDMA India. We have amongst us Dr. Juergen Morhard, the Consul General of Federal Republic of Germany from Mumbai, as our esteemed chief guest. He shall make the special address on the revival of economy on the Indo-German cooperation. This will be followed by the presentations from Invest India on the introduction, impact, and opportunities of Atma Nirbhar Bharat Initiative by Mr. Deepak Bagla, who is the Managing Director and CEO of Invest India, and Mr. Varun Sood, who is the Vice President at Invest India. Mr. Rahul Oza, the Partner Head of Mumbai and Pune office of Roedl and Partner, will guide us on the impact and opportunities of the initiative for German companies. To share an experience on implementing the Atma Nirbhar Bharat Initiative from the industry perspective, we will have with us Mr. P.L. Muthusekkar, who is the Managing Director of North Drive Systems India and the SAARC countries, and Mr. Avinash Chintawar, the Managing Director of Bosch Chassis, joining us. This will be followed by the Q&A session. With no further delay, I'd like to hand it over to you, Mr. Nath. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Jamli. Good morning, VDMA members and friends from the Indo-German fraternity. A hearty welcome to all of you at this very significant web seminar on decoding the benefit of Atma Nirbhar Bharat Initiative for German companies, being organized by the German Engineering Federation, VDMA, in association with the German Consulate in Mumbai. We extend a warm welcome to our very eminent speakers today, Dr. Juergen Morhard, Mr. Deepak Bagla, Mr. Varun Sood, Mr. Rahul Oza, Mr. Avinash Chintawar, and Mr. P.L. Muthusekkar. Friends, David McCord Wright, in his Open Secret of Economic Growth, had observed the fundamental factors making for economic growth are non-economic and non-materialistic in character. It is the spirit itself that builds the body. On May 12th, when Honorable Prime Minister announced the Atma Nirbhar Bharat package, the core was non-economic and non-materialistic in character. For the first time, the approach to growth had truly turned towards internal strength with the slogan, vocal for local to make it global. A logical corollary should be a demand-based economy system, which is self-producing and self-consuming. A self-reliant Bharat will stand on 5 pillars, which will bring in quantum jump and not just incremental change in our economy. We are all very excited to hear our esteemed speakers today who will dwell in details on the benefits of Atma Nirbhar Bharat and how it can be beneficial for the German companies also. In India, the impact of the induced lockdown and the GDP growth drop of 24% and 7.3% in the first 2 quarters of the financial year 2021 has, friends, led to a drop in the export of German machinery to India by almost 22% in the calendar year 2020. The export of German machinery dipped to around 2,400 million euros from 3,100 million euros in 2019. The top 5 segments of German machinery export to India were power transmission, valves and fittings, machine tool, construction machinery, and food processing and packaging machinery. Moving from India to the scenario of the machinery industry in Germany as well as globally, looking at the German mechanical engineering industry first, production in the first 11 months of the year 2020 fell short of the previous year's level by 12.4%. The forecast for the full year 2020 is a minus of 14%. This means that the mechanical engineering sector experienced the sharpest decline in production since the financial crisis, where it had touched minus 24.7% in 2009. However, despite the numerous restrictions prevailing in many countries, the silver lining is that for 2021, the VDMA economists expect a plus of 4%. In the last quarter, October to December 2020, 5 branches within the German engineering industry achieved growth rates of 20% and more. These were plastic and rubber machinery, agriculture machinery, fluid power, material handling, and textile machinery. By contrast, sectors like mining machinery and textile care and leather technology suffered order declines of 20% or more. In the European Union, machinery production shrunk by around 13% in 2020. In Japan, the decline was 12%. And in the US, mechanical engineering sector recorded the drop in production of minus 9%. For the global mechanical engineering sector, Oxford Economics published in December 2020 a price-adjusted turnover decline of 6% for 2020 and an increase of 7% for 2021. A return to pre-crisis levels is hence expected at global level in mid-2021. Hence, friends, globally the engineering industry has taken a hit due to the pandemic, but a recovery in 2021 is very much on the cards. And hopefully, this upward trajectory would get an impetus in 2022 and beyond. Now, I would like to invite the German Consul General in Mumbai, Dr. Juergen Morhard, for his address on revival of economy, Indo-German cooperation. But before that, on behalf of the German Engineering Federation, all our members and the German companies, I would like to thank Dr. Morhard for his proactive role and the tremendous support in taking up various issues being faced by the German companies in his region. Thank you, Dr. Morhard, for being such a pillar of support for the German industry and for taking up these issues at the government level. We look now over to you, Dr. Morhard, and we look forward to your address. Thank you. Dr. Morhard, you are muted. We can't hear you. Yeah. No, unfortunately, we still can't hear you, Dr. Morhard.
Can you hear me now better?
Yeah, now it's perfect, Dr. Morhard.
Okay, good. So good morning, everybody. I like to welcome in particular the gentleman representing Invest in India. And because you are not normally one of the partners in the weekly meetings we have, but welcome for joining us today. I like, of course, to thank first most VDMA for taking up this initiative, and I think it's a mission not only of me but all of my colleagues to be a catalyst between industries and governments and institutions, and also associations like VDMA and others we have here representing industries. It's always a pleasure to pick up industries, and today also here I'm very glad to welcome again representatives from German industries, like Mr. Chintawar from Bosch, like Mr. Muthusekkar from Morhard, and Mr. Muthusekkar I haven't seen you for a long time, and of course Rahul, who is well known to us. And the initiative basically came from some industries, right? It was some German companies addressing this to us. What does it mean? And can you help us to enlighten us? And of course, it says we have to bring industries together once again. And that I would like to thank also VDMA for taking this up and putting it on the platform, because the machine manufacturers are the #1 manufacturing here. And what we are going to be all about today is, of course, decoding. Right? That is basically what we need to understand. And it's always a year of the budget brings wonders, and then we have special programs and reforms. And this year we have been blessed with something which is called Atma Nirbhar Bharat. And I think it's the right time to understand what it really means for us. So for me, when I was asking around and asking, please, can you help me? What does it mean? Many people say, oh, it's political noise. Noise. There's a lot of political background behind it, but I don't want to delve in this, and because in the very end we have also to see and understand what it really means for the companies who are here presented today here and are members of the VDMA, and then you have to understand what is the difference between, or how does it relate to PLI, which is also has a lot of incentives for German companies. Of course, there are a lot of signals coming about this Bharat thing, which is not always positive, because if the minister goes out and said we need to have a 100% localized car, it means you are not interested in foreign technology anymore and moving and supporting foreign investors in these areas. Some of these policies don't fit together, but today we should look into the fine print. Mr. Nath already gave a lot of statistics, and in the very end we see that the economy in Germany is rebounding, and particularly strong in exports, and it's in particular very strong because of the export position Germany holds in Asia. For the moment, it's East Asia, of course, but we are very confident that also things are picking up when we see the recovery here in India. And what I found very, very encouraging is that all the German companies who had expansion plans basically are sticking to them. And one of the last meetings I had with us in another forum, another platform, it was really interesting to see that companies were asking in Gujarat, in my jurisdiction, for more land. Need help us to find more land, as this long-term perspective is still there and not given up. Of course, things might be only slow down, and India was never an easy market, but this faith and confidence in India is unshaken. Then I was just making some calculation. I was very proud to find out that the German consulate in Mumbai is already there for 145 years. We are older than the VDMA, Mr. Nath. Maybe I should have celebrated something this year here. So I want to give now also a topic we came across just in my talks yesterday and today here to our friends from Invest in India. There is a kind of concern how the expat community in the foreign companies can be included in the vaccination program. That is something please take in mind and see how this works out, because basically they are not foreseen in any program so far as foreigners here, and how do you qualify? Not everybody has a Aadhaar card, and the family members don't have something. The companies, when we're discussing, but we call you back, then for vaccination is also difficult with the flight situation, and also then it takes 3 to 4 weeks until in between the vaccinations shots. So of course everybody, we need the priority groups and the comorbid groups, and all these things should be done, but in a very long way they should be also not forgotten, and there should be perspective on how to include those groups of expats here who are creating value and on many levels of companies. And it's not only for the German, but basically it's for the whole group, and it cannot be big numbers, right? You know, it's not big numbers. I think something which could be taken up from Invest in India. So thank you very much. So I'm now looking forward myself to understand the decoding, and what I also see, you know, it's we have three gentlemen from German industries here, and the platform is basically all this to learn from each other. and because we have so much knowledge which are there and experience amongst a group of German companies. So we don't need always somebody else from the outside to explain, but many have been going forward. And of course, Roedl and Partner, who is consulting and accompanying so many other companies, is always qualified to help. I'm looking forward now to the decoding process, and let's go ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Morhard and Mr. Nath, for the kind address. We would now like to invite our speakers from Invest India, Mr. Deepak Bagla and Mr. Varun Sood, to introduce us and the industry on the impact and opportunities of Atma Nirbhar Bharat, the initiative of the Indian government. Over to you, Mr. Bagla. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamli. Thank you for inviting us. And I have to thank VDMA and especially Rajesh, Rahul, and Avinash, and all of you to have gotten us together. I must tell the Consul General that we may not be a part of your weekly meeting, but we are a part of your daily lives. And with most of your companies, we do deal with them on a daily basis, and we've been doing that for quite many years, maybe before you had your Consul General at that. So from that perspective, Dr. Morhard, it's a long association and it's a daily association and a close one.
Please allow me one comment. We only dare to address you if you cannot solve it on a local level.
Yeah, so we work on the local level also, Dr. Morhard. So this is probably the only platform. Let me introduce you to this platform. So it's probably, let me take you a little more into it. Most of your people in the industry are well aware of it because we work with them closely. But it's the only platform in the country where the central government and the state governments together are equity holders on it. So it moves right across everything, and there are a large number. So there's a special fast track mechanism which the ambassador manages out of Delhi, where you have all the companies which bring in their issues, and Invest India is the entity which runs that mechanism. Apart from that, we have a special desk which manages German issues, especially German companies having issues in India. And then we have a startup desk. So Startup India is also a part of Invest India. And we have several others, including R&D, etc. So maybe at length, at some point of time, we could take you through a little more to explain to you what Invest India is, or maybe your colleagues in the industry will be able to tell you on how we sort out issues right from the bottom level to the top. So be they policy issues or be they issues like the one which you just mentioned about a vaccine, we will definitely get back to you. Coming back onto Atma Nirbhar Bharat, I was a bit surprised when you mentioned that it's a political slogan. It actually isn't. I think Atma Nirbhar Bharat is a policy. And for those who know India well, this has been a policy of this government for the past 5 to 6 years. And let me explain what this means. And one of the things which got amplified was this policy is by the budget this year, which you will see that there's a new India where the focus is both bottom up and top down. And Atma Nirbhar was the Make in India big part of that, where the global inputs came in as to where India can fit into the global supply chain because it has values. It has a strong value addition. And now let me take you a little further. For those who know India well, they would realize that up to about 2000, what India was known best for was its MSMEs. It's in 2000 we had the special technology platform issues, because of which technology overtook the strength of India's MSMEs, which is frugal innovation, which we again saw during the period of the COVID. And what Atma Nirbhar Bharat essentially means is that we will work on India's strengths. And these are the strengths where India will partner with the world to make the best for itself and the world. So it's not a closed India. It's an India which participates more with the world on a more active front with its own strengths. And a true, let me put it in numbers because maybe that is something you'll appreciate more. Even during the lockdown, in the first 9 months of the lockdown, which is from April to December, I've received an FDI of 67.5 billion. Last year, previous time, it was just about 55 billion. So let me just put it in perspective that the world has recognized it, what it is, and they are moving on to join hands with India. And this is where German companies come in very strongly as our partnership. Germany has been a long partner with us, and there are a number of German success cases in India. In fact, we run a very active program in Germany for the mid-market access. I think Varun, my colleague, is going to speak about it, and we get a large number of queries coming in from there. So it is a very well-established relationship. It is a relationship which is shown results, which has shown successes. And I'm sure this is going to benefit immensely by the entire effort on seeing how we are going to make India competitive. And that is where our objective here is to reduce logistics costs, is to reduce the problems which were associated of doing business. And by the way, if you look at it, the market access issues in India are probably far less than we have in many countries in Europe. And Dr. Morhard, when you look at it into more deeply, you'll probably realize that India is not very far away. In fact, it will probably rank much high up there. But putting it all back into perspective, Atma Nirbhar Bharat is very clearly where India is going to create strengths, where it has its strengths and its natural strengths. We are going to create our competitiveness, and that is where we would like to have people partner with us and see how we can create it in a competitive manner and help balance sheets across the globe. Varun, my colleague, is going to walk you through with some of the thoughts and some of the other points on the PLI and the Atma Nirbhar Bharat. We are all there. And as I said, always, Invest India remains with you as your friend, which will walk through with your entire journey in India. And we will get back to you, Mr. Consul General, on the vaccination bit. We will get back and we will get to the ministry and get back to you with that. Thank you very much. Varun, all yours.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bagla, for your great introductory remarks and setting the context. First of all, I would like to thank Dr. Morhard and the VDMA team for giving us this opportunity and the platform to showcase the new India and the key transformations that Mr. Bagla just talked about, which is shaping the India of 2030, and especially the Atma Nirbhar Bharat, which is self-reliant India and make in India not just for the country or the partners, but for the whole globe. So today I'll be talking specifically about some of the key changes where India was in the past. What are the key changes which the government is driving, and especially talk about some of the key sectors related to Indo-German collaboration, and then specifically get into Invest India and some of our key initiatives which are helping and supporting the German investors in driving those opportunities on the ground. So if you can move to the next slide, please. This is where I want to talk about where India was in the past. So if you can see, in India in 2011 was ranking on based of GDPs, where we were around the number 12th economy in the world. But by 2030, we're looking to be the top third economy in the world in terms of the GDP of close to around $8 to $9 trillion. So that's where the major growth is happening. As you can see, between 1947 to 2010, it took us 63 years to reach $1 trillion mark. But in the next 7 years, we became a $2 trillion economy. So that is the kind of jump we are consistently seeing. And if you see in the last few years, especially in the last 3 years from 2017 to 2020, it took us 3 years to become a $3 trillion economy. So that is the kind of pace we are looking at and the kind of transformation which is happening on the ground, and then the effect which we are seeing on the economy as well. Now we've become the fastest growing major economies in the world with a growth rate of around 11.15%. We are the #1 global fintech market in the world itself. I mean, you can see the penetration of smartphones and the mobile phones and the impact it is happening, the technology innovation and the disruptive changes that it is happening on the ground as well. If you can move to the next slide. So, the most important part that we wanted to look at, next slide, please. Where does these opportunities lie? So Mr. Bagla briefly touched upon the Make in India program, which was launched by the Honorable Prime Minister in 2015, and that presents a $5 trillion worth of opportunities to investors across segments. And earlier Ms. Nath touched upon some of the key German exports in the segments, especially on the power sector, on the capital good machineries, on the food processing machineries. So if you can look at these particular sectors here, capital goods itself is $112 billion worth of opportunity by 2025. So the investors have a lot of different areas which they can look at invest, and as Invest India, we're there to support and handhold the investors to understand what the central policies are, what the state regulations are, and how do you actually go ahead and set up those and ground those investments and provide any aftercare services that are required. So if you move to the next slide, I just briefly wanted to touch upon some of the key opportunities, specifically in terms of, next slide, please. So as you can see in this particular slide, we can talk about the different segments and how India is growing in those particular segments. For example, I briefly touched upon how the smartphone penetration is happening in the country. Currently, we have close to around 350 million plus smartphone users, and we've got a user base of close to around 1.2 billion people. But the most interesting part over here, a lot of people are using double SIM cards or multiple SIM cards. So the penetration of smartphone market is still it's still under penetrated market. So there's a lot of opportunities for manufacturers to come and set up operations. For example, South Korean mobile manufacturer, especially Samsung, has set up the largest manufacturing facility outside of Korea in Indian market. So that is the kind of potential we are talking about. The other key area that we wanted to touch upon today is the growth in the auto and the auto component sector. More than 4 million plus commercial and passenger vehicles were sold in 2019. Because of COVID, there were challenges, but now the auto growth has again picked up. So there's a lot of opportunities which are there for investors to explore amongst different sectors altogether. If you can move to the next slide, please. There've been a lot of challenges because of COVID, where, as Mr. Bagla touched upon, right, from April to December, India became one of the highest FDI recipients. But it didn't happen overnight. I mean, the country had to go through a lot of challenges, but we innovated and we came out strongly because of it. Because the first example that I wanted to highlight, if you see on the top left corner, before COVID, there was not even a single PPE suit which was manufactured in the country. In the first 60 days, we became the second largest PPE manufacturer in the world. So that is the kind of strength of exports on those particular kits that were happening. By end of August 2020, we had more than 23 lakhs, which is close to around 2.3 million PPE kits, which were just exported to other countries. So India has played a very significant role during the whole COVID era, where we ensured the HCQ, especially the hydroxychloroquine, was supplied to more than 120 plus countries. So we understand the kind of critical nature where India can come and contribute to the entire world in battling this particular pandemic, and that is what resonates with the investors. So if you move to the next slide, you can see how the sentiment which a UN survey had undertaken showcases India as one of the preferred destination. Next slide, please. Where we can see more than 13% of investors have showed interest in making India as one of their preferred investment destinations when they're looking to diversify from the particular country to another location altogether. Moving on to the next, just wanted to briefly touch upon the ease of doing business. The government is focusing on moving from red tape to red carpet, and that is clearly visible in the ranking jump which India has seen in the past few years on ease of doing business index. We have recorded a jump of around 79 places and became one of the top 10 improvers globally in the whole ranking parameters. More than 4,000 redundant laws have been relooked, and a lot of those have been abolished, and technology has played a very critical role in the same. What are the opportunities that it presents? we've got more than infrastructure is a huge opportunity where we have more than 400 airports across the country, which is carrying more than 7 million passengers on a monthly basis. So, the connected infrastructure is something government is very laying their emphasis on, and that's where a lot of collaborations with investors across the globe is required. We need expertise, we need resources for investors to come and join us in this particular development that is happening for India of 2025 and India of 2030 as well. So if we move to the next slide, please. I was talking about the reforms. A lot of labor laws have been reformed. So Dr. Morhard mentioned earlier in his remarks, some of these challenges on the ground, but that is what government is looking at, and they're trying to simplify these challenges. And as you can see, more than 44 labor laws have been subsumed into 4 codes on wages, industrial relations, occupational safety, social security, and it's being fast-tracked on regular basis. The aim of the government is to provide a business-friendly environment. We realize, the best example for this is the goods and services tax, which made India a single market. Now, for a company to transact from one state to another, they don't have to apply for multiple applications or licenses. India becomes a single market, and the government is in the process of further streamlining it as we go ahead. So the whole idea is that all these simplification of laws or removal of redundancies from the system will make India a favorable destination or a better manufacturing place. So when companies are looking for alternatives to diversify their supply chain, this is one of the markets that becomes or comes on the top of the board discussion whenever that happens. Moving to the next slide gives a very brief overview of how India stands when you compare it across to our neighboring countries. If you look at the new corporate tax structures which were announced by our Honorable Finance Minister, India became one of the most competitive tax-friendly country where the tax rate is close to around 17.16%. If we look at the ease of getting credit index, we have jumped multiple places where we've ranked #1 during this period as well. And the most important part is embracing disruptive ideas. Innovation is critical to survival, and India has shown that there's continuous improvement on the ground, on the way we've been doing business, and that is shown in the rankings where we've jumped to close to around 59.5%, ranking #2. And it's a constant progress and a constant process where we're looking to innovate and move forward. Now coming to self-reliant or Atma Nirbhar Bharat, if we can move to the next slide, there are 5 strong pillars, and Mr. Nath did touch upon during his opening remarks, that economy, infrastructure, systems, technology, democracy, and demand. Those are the 5 critical elements. Next slide, please. So we have to leverage technology to ensure that all these changes that we've been talking about move smoothly on the ground as well. There have been challenges in the past where licenses, getting things moving through various departments had been a problem. But with the onset of a national single window licensing process, it's already underway, and by April, we're looking to get around 10 to 12 states integrated, where an investor sitting at the comfort of a laptop using internet can go through the whole process of setting up units and industries, and same could be applied online, and most of the approvals would be given there as well. So using of technology is very critical in building up the whole infrastructure. And that's where, once those infrastructure is built up, those supply chain reforms and easier and simple laws will make a stronger case for India to become a destination for manufacturing for the globe altogether. Moving on to the next slide, other key elements within Atma Nirbhar Bharat are ensuring that you take your local and domestic industry along. That's where we can learn from Germany how they build up their small medium enterprises and empower them to become the most competitive in the world. And that's where the collaboration, which I'll be talking about briefly later during the presentation, on collaboration between Indo-German companies, both at the highest level, at the people level, at the industry level, needs to happen. And that's where a focus has been to make India self-reliant, where a lot of schemes, especially focusing on MSMEs and NBFCs, have been doled out by the government, and they've been executed well. So what has it resulted in? It has been resulting in increased FDI, ensuring better collaboration and better manufacturing capabilities on the ground as well. The other thing that government has looked at is making it easier for companies to enter into sectors which were restricted in the past. So, for example, in defense, the FDI limits have been increased to 74% from 49, where government ensures that a lot of innovation happens and a lot of things happen on the ground. Similarly, in the finance sector, insurance, the limits have been revised as well. So all these critical elements are very necessarily to ensure that we move towards the goal of a self-reliant India of 2030. Moving to the next slide, some of the key changes that have happened across sectors, and I think these are very relevant to our industry leaders or partners in Germany. Next slide, please. For example, we talked about energy. Hydro energy mission is looking to generate hydrogen from green power resources. India has a huge target where their energy requirements have to be met over the next few years, and that's where collaboration between German and Indian industry would pave way to ensure that these targets are met. The other key elements are textile and pharmaceuticals. India has been dependently heavily on the API manufacturing, but now the production-linked incentive scheme launched by the government recently lays an outlay of close to around 2.23 lakh crore, where we're looking to make India a self-reliant country in terms of producing the manufacturing, manufacturing the medicine in the country, and not just be the pharmacy to the world, but include innovation and become a laboratory to the world as well. Moving to the next slide, we just wanted to touch upon some of the other key elements, specifically the sectors which are very critical between India and Germany as well. With the new scrapping policy, which the government is aiming to announce in the next few weeks, it'll give a huge impetus for new vehicles to come on road and people to kind of ensure that certain timelines are being managed when coming to polluting vehicles and ensuring these challenges as well. And the other key element is happening on the e-vehicle policy, the electric vehicle policy, where a huge push is being given by a lot of state governments in ensuring adoption of better, especially the e-vehicles, starting with government being the role model, and then paving way for setting up that infrastructure, which is very critical for adoption of new technology as well. And startups play a very critical role. The Startup India program, which I'll be talking about briefly later during the presentation, has played a key critical role in driving the innovation in the country as well. Whereas it's become easier to incorporate one-person companies, and a lot of these startups, where India used to have less than 15,000 startups, now we have more than 45,000 registered startups within the country as well. So there's a huge jump that has happened during this particular period. If we move to the next slide, that talks about how we're looking to bolster the manufacturing capabilities across these 10 key sectors. So these are the key incentives that the government has launched, which is close to around $20 billion worth of incentives, which is government is ready to offer to make sure that India becomes self-reliant in these particular sectors. And what are the benefits that is there? There's incentives ranging from 4 to 6% on incremental sales across multiple categories which have been defined. So what it does is it makes India a very globally competitive location for investors to come and see those particular and look at those particular sectors as well. And it also does create a lot of opportunities to consider India as a base for exporting, not just to Asia or Africa, but to the rest of the world as well. And the final element over here is bringing in the innovation. It's just not the money which the country is looking to attract. It's the technology and the innovation and the mindset change that is most critical in driving this particular initiative altogether. India and Germany, if we move to the next slide, has been sharing a very strong relationship, and it goes at the highest level altogether. We've been a partner in these transformations that has happened in the past few years. If you look at the investments coming in from Germany, we've received close to around $12 billion worth of investments across multiple sectors. Mr. Bagla did touch upon some of the key areas that we, support German companies. So, just to inform the Honorable Consul General, we've received more than 200 business requests which have been facilitated by Invest India team across multiple sectors in the last few years. And we work very closely with all our partners in ensuring that things move smoothly for them on the ground as well. More than 1,600 plus in Indian-German collaborations have already happened, and more than 600 Indian-German joint ventures have been established in the country. So we're looking to increase this number in a very significant manner, and we would definitely like VDMA members to be part of this incremental transformation that is happening on the ground. Just a few examples that I wanted to touch upon today, specifically if we move to the next slide, specifically on Siemens. As you can see, what has happened, and this is very interesting. You know, the subsidiary in India has outperformed the headquarters in Germany as well. As you can see, in the last 5 years, the Indian subsidiary has grown at around 29%, whereas the German headquarter grew at a 16%, the kind of value that was returned to the shareholder. So we're looking at a incremental difference of 7%. That is the kind of return which Indian subsidiary was able to offer in comparison to the headquarters as well. So that is where the power of India comes into play. That some of these innovations, once you look at and explore India, for example, what Bosch has done, they've set up the largest R&D center outside Germany, which has close to around 31,000 employees and more than 18,000 plus R&D engineers. So these companies understand the potential that India brings, not just to innovate and serve the large domestic market which India has, but also to look at the opportunities where you can use India as a base and cater to the globe. So this has already been proven by some of the top names in Germany, which everyone is very familiar with. And Mr. Bagla did touch upon on the next slide, is the key bilateral initiatives which are happening between India and Germany, especially the Indo-German fast-track mechanism, which the Honorable Ambassador and Secretary DPIIT is chairing on a regular basis, where more than 83% issues have been resolved. So, what is critical is that there might be challenges, but we are there to support and ensure that any challenges that you face, either on the ground or anything related to the process or regulations, we are there to support you, to handhold you, to guide you, and ensure we find the best mitigating strategy to it as well. We have more than 135 members which have committed close to around $970 million under Make in India Mittelstand, which was launched by during the meeting of both the head of states in Germany itself. And startup collaboration is driving the way for innovation, where Invest India is the official ambassador for ensuring the Indo-German collaboration happens at a very rapid and a fast pace. That brings me to the closure of my slides, where we talk about what Invest India is. So moving on to the next slide, Mr. Bagla did touch upon that, we are one of the only initiatives which has both the central and the state ministries. So we are in a very unique position. Next slide, please, where we sit between the industry and the government itself. So we are voice of the industry to the government and ensure that all this seamlessly gets connected. As you can see, we have been actively supporting different companies and industries in creating awareness and driving that engagement within the country itself. Any kind of services which the country, I mean, the companies require in understanding Indian market and operationalizing their investments in the company is provided by Invest India on pro bono basis. And we ensure that we are there as part of your strategy discussion. So when you're pitching to your boards that why India would be a good market to look at, that is where our team will come and support you in ensuring you have all the latest stats and numbers to make that pitch stronger. And this has not just been appreciated and recognized by our partners or by our industry leaders who we work very closely with, but this has been recognized at the highest authorities. Whereas UNCTAD, which is the Oscar for IPA, investment promotion agencies, have awarded Invest India one of the best IPAs for last 3 consecutive terms. And same has been gone for annual investor meets, where we've been recognized as one of the top performers. Moving to the last 3 slides, I just wanted to briefly touch upon the key initiatives. If we can move to the next one, please. It's first about the Startup India, where I briefly touched upon, how innovation is happening, where earlier the innovation was restricted to the top metro cities, but now it's the tier 2 and the tier 3 cities which is driving innovation. And as you can see, more than 538 districts in tier 1 cities are some of these key drivers. And startups are very critical because every 12 job, I mean, every startup is creating 12 jobs per startup. So the more startups we have, the more job creations can happen on the ground. The other 2 the initiatives that I wanted to briefly touch upon is Agni, which is technology to commercialization. There's a lot of innovation happening, and Germany is known for innovation. And that's where we need to understand how we can do collaboration across sectors to bring in those innovations into the market. So we can collaborate with innovators in Germany, in India, with the government, with the private entities, and commercialize those technologies. That's where Agni plays a very critical role under the Office of Principal Scientific Advisor to commercialize these technologies and find value for all the stakeholders. And the most important and the final part, where I will close with, is the India investment grid. What we want to showcase is that there's a lot of opportunities across multiple sectors in India, and it can get overwhelming. So what we've done is we've created an online platform where at the comfort of your home, you can go and browse for multiple projects across sectors, across categories. So we have more than 4,800 projects worth $270 billion, which have been listed on India Investment Grid. So you're sitting at the comfort of your home, you can look at these projects and get in touch with the project owners and see how you can collaborate and get the process moving on the ground. So that's where Invest India will be your friend and your partner, and we look forward to the continuous guidance from the Honorable Consul General and our partners such as VDMA to move the Indo-German collaboration to the next level altogether. Thank you so much, and back to you, Jamie.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bagla, for taking your time and joining with us. And thank you, Mr. Sood, for that very detailed and insightful presentations. I'm sure we'll have a lot of questions during the Q&A. I'd like to now invite Mr. Rahul Oza from Roedl and Partner to guide us on the impact and opportunities of the initiative of the German companies. Thank you, Rahul.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. It is again a pleasure being a part of this very esteemed panel. If you can directly move to the slides. Yeah, next slide, please. Next slide. Decoding the Atma Nirbhar initiative is, I feel, very easy, because if we let us have a quick look on what since 2014 is the whole policy of India. It is Make in India, Skill India, Clean India, Digital India, and Startup at India. I know there are many more initiatives which the government has launched, but for us as representatives of the German industry, I think these are the most important factors. These were as well prior to 2014, points which were always criticized for investments in India, and the government took the right initiative to set emphases in this. Make in India is surely the most important initiative, as we are expecting a structural, and we are in the need of a structural change of the Indian economy from a service-oriented to a manufacturing-oriented. Now, having said that, yes, there are many points, and I would like to support the friends from Invest India. Many initiatives have been materialized and strategized, and it is a good way. And I agree as well that the high influx of the FDI in the last year was based on the requirement as well that setting up a manufacturing plant, a German company does not take the decision very easily. It takes some time, and over the last few years, it has been evaluated, elaborated, and now the investments are coming. And as Mr. Morhard said as well, that whoever has planned to invest in India is consistently sticking to their plan. Can we move to the next slide, please? These were areas which needed a lot of improvement. I don't want to say that all has been improved already, but in each single factor, we can see a improvement, a large improvement, slight improvement, but work in progress. And that is nice to see that we are committed to stringent and streamline and clean the Indian economic environment, an efficient administration, and I think without trying to sugarcoat too much, Invest India as a nodal office is one of the key factors of an efficient administration. Ease of doing business is definitely has been improved. The service hub to many production hub is improving. I find very interesting that we are, as a developing nation, really committed here in India to protection of environment, and it is going. And everyone who knows India knows that it is not an easy task to address all the issues. It is a mental change, it is an environmental change, it is a policy change. All this takes some time, but we can see a stringent and very forceful implementation. Improvement of working conditions is definitely something which is furthermore established with the labor code reforms, which are going to take place very soon. Infrastructure improvement, no doubt. We are working on the infrastructure a lot, and a lot with German help. I will come little later on this. In earlier days, it was always a point of criticism that to sustain the growth level of double digits or high single digits, India needs to have a much higher infrastructure investment, which is now happening. Yeah. Last but not least, obviously, a fight of corruption and shadow economy have been addressed well and are in the center of focus. Next slide, please. These are some milestones which have been set before Atma Nirbhar, and which are probably not known to everyone, that these are important factors for a country to address and to emphasize on. As a as a entrepreneur, people always feel that only state subsidies are important and tax relaxation are important to attract FDI. No, it is much more complicated, because you need, if you want to attract investment, you need to give as well the opportunity how to retrieve that investment. You need to ensure an legal and economic environment which works on a clean manner. You need a jurisdictional system which grants you your right or not, within a short period of time. All these factors have been addressed over the past few years in the above row. In the lower row, we need a jurisdictional streamlining. So the National Company Law Tribunal was a very important factor. The very heavily debated and not popular demonetization was a very, very important step to clean the economical environment. And we have pointed it out on January 2019. Probably Mr. Bagla still remembers my long discussions which I had in his office on the ease of ECB rules. I don't know whether that was substantial to change as well the policies, but I must say we have seen a tremendous change in the FDI regulations, which be it easing out the or increasing industrial captures, the ECB permissions, and so it is going really in a good way. Several introductions of e-governance and ease of doing business, like the SPICE form and digital PAN and whatsoever, have been introduced. Does it work always seamlessly? No, let's be honest, but it is in a very, very good stage and it is going better. But I would request not to just emphasize what we have achieved, but as well to emphasize what we still, in all these areas, we need still further improvements. What are we expecting in 2021? Obviously, the labor law reforms, which have been discussed already multiple times, and the introduction of data protection bill. Whether like it or not, it is very important, because we are not only doing Make in India, we are still emphasizing on a service. We are not stopping our service sector. And for the service sector to be competitive on a global market, it is of utmost importance that we have an international data protection regulation. Next slide, please. So now Atma Nirbhar, what is it? Is it a change of policy? No. Is it a political noise or marketing, which many people say? I don't feel so. I feel that the Atma Nirbhar Bharat is a fertilizing and milestone towards emphasizing the earlier set policies in 2014 and following years. So yes, the stimulation package, whether it is the sufficient or not sufficient, it is very highly to be debated, which is not a part of our today's session. There are many things which have been implemented under the Atma Nirbhar, but which were already discussed much earlier. So I wouldn't say that it is as something totally new. It is just emphasizing and further putting the commitment on Make in India, New India Startup India, all these policies. Let me address 2 points of my concern. The disallowance of the global tender up to 2 billion INR. And probably Mr. Bagla and Mr. Sood, if you want to take this up. I understand and I appreciate the sentiments behind it, but we have to really revisit whether it is the right mission message put to the foreign industry. Atma Nirbhar and at the same time disallowing the global tender gives the taste of a foreclosure and closed door policy, which we want to avoid, because this is surely not what Atma Nirbhar stands for. It stands for being an independent part of the global supply chain. That is my interpretation. So we should really be restrictive on disallowance of global tenders. I'll give you later a short example. The MSME sector boost is pointed out very well, but let me motivate everyone here not to see it as the end of it. This can be only the starting. If we want to compare an industry and an economical system like with Germany, where the German Mittelstand, and that's the reason why Make in India Mittelstand has been initiated, where Roedl and partner is as well a key partner to it, is the backbone of the industry. And we are not talking about small companies, we are talking about global hidden champions. And I don't know whether Mr. Avinash will agree to that, but many, and I used to work for Bosch, so from my old Bosch days, Bosch still feels that they are an Mittelstands company. Though obviously they do not fit into any definition of Mittelstand. So we have to ensure that the MSME companies of India can become global players. And that is the main focus which we should put in the MSME sector support. Next slide, please. Mr. Sood had already put the 5 pillars, so I do not want to discuss anything on that. But I want to again summarize. For me, Atma Nirbhar is a stepping stone to fulfill and expedite the vision of India, and we need much more governmental changes in many fields, which will take some time, but we should not play and take the time factor for granted. India is becoming an attractive investment destination, and the whole policies will make it more attractive. But I'm addressing this again to Invest India. We need, and Mr. Morhard and I had already discussed it a couple of times, the perception of India, especially in the German market, needs a better push and brushing up, and that you should definitely focus on. Next slide, please. Future vision. Yes, renewable energy, e-mobility, production, companies, automotive sector. I do see it for the first time after this budget as an potential good market for India with a scrapping policy. probably it was inspired by the Abwrackprämie, which Germany had a couple of years back, and which gave the German automotive industry a huge boost. The mechanical engineering is for sure one of the most important, because and that leads me to the other side of the table. If we want to put Indian companies into the export-oriented companies, they need quality, and that is something which the Honorable Prime Minister has emphasized, that it is not about just manufacturing cheap. It is manufacturing on the highest quality standard. For the highest quality standard, we know exactly that German mechanical engineered products and machines are the best to use. For that, we need as well a revisit of the customs relief and a relaxation of permanent establishment issues, because as many of you know, if an agency is model of an Indian subsidiary of a German mechanical engineering company which tries to sell their very valuable and good highly productive goods in India, can attract very easily a permanent establishment, which leads to a big issue, that needs to address, because India is has a lot of opportunities for German companies, but German companies offer as well a lot of opportunities for the Indian market, I think it is a mutual hand-in-hand approach which we should have there. Same with our participation on infrastructure project. We know all, except probably the Berlin airport. India Germany is a very strong infrastructure-driven company, and the technology related to infrastructure lies in Germany. Now, it does not make sense, ladies and gentlemen, to have to set up for each infrastructure project for a German company to have a wholly owned subsidiary. So the government has given branch office or project office opportunities, but on the other side, it is very difficult to implement that. We need, again here, a strong relaxation of the PE issues. If India wants to have the know-how and knowledge from German companies in India to set up a good infrastructure, we should not punish them with a permanent establishment trap. Please let us look into this. And again, the revisit of global tender regulations. Manufacturing for the global market, yes, I think, and I can see a huge boost of this kind of setups in India from German companies. However, I'm eagerly awaiting, and I hope that we do not get any disappointment here. The export incentives, be it for goods or services, which shall be announced soon, can give a good boost to that if they are well drafted. State subsidies can be further explored, and there are state governments and like Tamil Nadu, which are very well organized, or Gujarat. And last but not least, further topics like 15% brackets give more to it. Here you will find several of our publications, be it in German or in English, which might keep you updated. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Rahul, for the detailed presentation. I think it was quite insightful from your side. I'd like to now invite our speakers from the industry side, our dear members. So we have the experts who already made the decision and some advocacy on the policy and its impact, which will have on the German companies. So it'll be best to hear it from the personal experience the German companies have had on the other side with the implementation. I'd like to now request Mr. P.L. Muthusekkar from Nord Systems to kindly share his views with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamli. Ladies and gentlemen, keeping the timelines, I'll keep it very brief on the Nord localization program, which started in 2012. Early in 2012, we started the localization program. And Nord believes in, not India-specific localization. We always believe in, global purchase from India. So when we talk of vocal for local, we believe in local for global also. So that's the way it is. And we have a stringent evaluation process. Normally, German companies, select vendors. It takes about 6 to 9 months to select a vendor. And when a sample is being, purchased, we send it to 2 different countries. Of course, one is to Germany, and another one could be China or US or Italy or any other, Nord subsidiaries, where it gets validated. And once it's validated and tested, then we go for the purchase. And we believe in doing an evaluation on a monthly basis. So here I just want to give you a small, on a monthly basis what we do on evaluation. 40% is basically for the quality, 40% is for the delivery, and 10% is for the documentation and process. 10% is for the consistency. So that is the way we do an evaluation, and every month a report is being sent to the suppliers. In India, we have about close to around 400 vendor base. Of course, many of them are for a project or small item supplies, but there are about 40 vendors who are supplying directly for the production. Out of the 40 vendors, there are about 9 vendors which are the global players, and 10 vendors are basically for exports. So that's the snapshot of what we do in Nord India. And we believe in the golden rule. We can even call it as a Ram Rajya, because we all believe in the Ram Rajya. 3 points. Number 1 point is a very, very fair treatment for our suppliers. Number 2 is, we should deal with them in dignity. And number 3 is, we should not, expect them to do any payment follow-ups. Even during lockdown period, we have paid all our vendors on time. We have payment of 2 batches. One is in the 2nd week and one is in the 4th week of the month, where the payments are made. And I can proudly tell that, so far, there has not been a single call. There are many German company suppliers also with us, and some of them must be, part of this program also today. No one has called us for any of the payments. So that's the credibility we have. And when it comes to, some certain decisions, we have a purchase committee, and the committee is empowered to take the decisions. So these are all the, the Nord perspective. But couple of bottlenecks in, going Atma Nirbhar or, going local and for global, I just want to brief. One is the global understanding and requirements are important for the suppliers. I think they need to understand. Even we had a lot of difficulties. For example, some suppliers think even a 1 week or a 2 week delay is acceptable, but for us, even a 1 day delay is not acceptable. And when it comes to the part number or batch number, where it has to be located in the part, many of the suppliers have a feeling that you can locate it in any part because 360 degrees you can put the batch number, but we have a specific place that this is the place where the the batch number or the quantity and other things have to be mentioned. Part number has to be mentioned. Of course, we are flexible. It is not like rigid. Like being a German company, we want to follow everything. Normally in Europe or in Germany, when we buy a product, it comes with the batch number. When the batch number is particularly the date of production. For example, today is the 10th March. The 10th March 10/3/21. The batch number would appear on the product what we buy. But unfortunately, in India, you cannot have the the production date because the same date when it is produced, it is not being supplied in India because of documentation, because of road permit or transport issues. So we allow them to use the week number. So that means that flexibility is given to our suppliers to use the week number. That means week 11. So that can be mentioned. Week 11, 21 would be the the would appear on the part. And last, I would like to brief when we do an evaluation. I have two examples, classic examples. One is an global multinational company, which is a 2,300 crore company from Bangalore. Is one of our suppliers. The kind of rating what we have is 94. So any supplier rating less than 75 is not eligible to be a supplier. So any supplier more than 75%, they are a qualified supplier for us. And anybody above 85 is a serial supplier. And anybody above 95%, rating is, quality supplier. So that's the way we do a rating, and every month we send this. Here I would like to mention that there is a very small scale industry which we developed 10 years ago in India, in Pune, who is doing only a turnover of 8 crore today. Out of the 8 crore, we buy about 4 crore worth of components from them. He has a rating of 99% as per the February. So that's the way we have developed the clients in India. And thank you very much for the opportunity. If anything, we can discuss more on the question and answer session. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Muthusekkar. I'll request Mr. Chintawar from Bosch to share his experience with us, please. Mr. Chintawar, you are muted. We cannot hear you.
Okay. Am I audible now?
Yes, you are. Please go ahead. Okay. Thank you.
So I think Mr. Muthu has given a lot of insight into the supplier side, and then I will use my time on the other aspects, because all what is said is very relevant, and we all at Bosch also follow that. But the point which I would like to emphasize is that Atma Nirbhar Bharat is preceded by multiple initiatives by government and a lot of export incentives. And we at Bosch have been able to really make a lot of progress using these incentives and using these export promotion schemes very, very successfully. Some of them I could highlight. For example, there was a scheme, export-oriented unit, 100% export-oriented unit in automobile industry established at Nashik, and I was that time directly responsible for the entire project management. And it was the biggest export-oriented unit in India that time in automobile sector. In 2 years, we invested 100 million euros, which accounts for approximately 850 crores today. And in following 2 years, we exported 100 million euros from this unit. Why I want to reiterate this successful example? Basically, many times people speak about schemes, but are the schemes realistic, and are we able to really fulfill all the criteria and get the benefit? And this example revealed that there are multiple schemes. You need to be very, very careful. Every benefit comes with a responsibility and comes with a liability. There are also examples wherein export promotion of capital goods, people have imported capital goods, but they could not fulfill the export obligation. Then naturally government comes back with the bill that you took so many benefits, but you did not fulfill. So my experience on this is that whenever you choose a scheme, it is most important that you understand the benefit, and as well as you understand the responsibilities and the liabilities, first part. Yeah, so that not only you get the benefit, but also you take care of your image and so on. Second important learnings is the agility, because most of the export projects or initiatives come with a very stringent timeline, and you must put sufficient resources in order to really meet the deadlines. Many times the customer overseas have always a doubt because of some background or some history that what about the deliveries from India, will they be in time and so on. And we must really prove here that the exports from India can surely will be meeting the quality expectations and as well as the in-time delivery expectations. And not only this, but the sustainability of the business, sustainability of the quality, it also plays a very, very important. And I can say this from multiple such export projects which I handled in very large volumes, also in medium volumes. And there are certain common elements of success enablers, which I already mentioned earlier. And every new project which comes up, you can utilize your past learnings and really do a better job next time. But the key element of the quality, on-time delivery, and the sustainable performance will never change. Yeah, and under Atma Nirbhar Bharat, government has come up now. There are also eligibility criteria. There is a mandatory criteria. Rahul also already mentioned that there must be a revenue outside India of up to 200 crore plus rupees. And there are certain optional criteria, 1 out of 3, to become really eligible under the PLI scheme. Scheme details are yet to be rolled out, but my opinion here would be when the scheme gets rolled out, yeah, there will be a lot of information available. Most important is that we need to find out which is the best scheme to choose, because there is one scheme called Component Champion Scheme, there is a Production Linked Incentive Scheme, and then there is a Global Sourcing Scheme. Incentives are different. For example, under Component Champion Scheme, the incentive is 4 to 7% of the sales turnover. In case of Production Incentive Scheme, it is 0.5 to 4%. In case of Global Sourcing, it is 1% to 12%. So we need to find out which is the best treatment possible. And best treatment should not be only on monetary basis. And we must take a balanced approach here, not only looking at the monetary aspect, but also on the other aspect of liabilities and obligations and the compliance which we need to meet. And based on the eligibility criteria, one can really go ahead, and whole industry is really looking forward to the announcement of the details of the PLI scheme. And I'm sure that many Indian industries will be able to take good benefit out of this and make it a win-win, not only for the companies, but also for our country, and make this Atma Nirbhar Bharat a great successful event. Thanks. So if there are any questions, I will be able to take with this.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chintawar. Thank you, Mr. Muthusekkar. And of course, I think very nice presentation also from Rahul, and the Invest in India presentation. In fact, may I request all the speakers to switch on their cameras, Rahul and Mr. Sood also, Varun. Varun, can you switch on your camera? Yes. Or Uday. Uday, you have joined from Invest India?
Yes, I have joined from Invest India.
Yes. So Uday, let me first, there are a couple of questions which I think are relevant for Invest India. So let me address these questions to you first, Uday. How can German company, which has already invested under the initiative Make in India in the past 3 years, get a fair value for its products in all the government tenders, which are decided on basically on the lowest bidder basis, the L1 basis, where product quality comparison criteria of the bidders are somewhat unequal? I think this is a very relevant question, Uday. So we would look for your inputs to this, Uday.
In order to promote public procurement from domestic companies, DPIIT has already issued preferential Make in India policy, where the domestic companies are given preference in terms of being they are having a factory in India. So there is a preference in terms of, for example, if somebody is L1 and they are coming in the price range of L1 plus 15%, so they have been given an opportunity to match the L1 and take away the order. So all the ministries have been instructed similarly to finalize the Make in India public procurement policies, and many ministries have floated those policies to encourage domestic companies which are manufacturing to get the maximum public procurement orders. As far as quality is concerned, yes, in tenders, since there are a lot of companies who participate, so not following L1 and giving tender entirely on quality basis, that might also involve later on litigation. So in order to balance both of them, there is a price preference which is there in terms of if any companies comes in that
Uday,
band, they can match
Uday,
L1 and
voice is very. Uday, can you just be a little louder? It's a little difficult to hear you.
yeah.
Yes.
So I was saying that in order to encourage domestic manufacturers, there is a price range which has been given so that any company which is there in that price band can match L1 and take away the order, who is the domestic manufacturer.
I had a little difficulty to understand because of the audio.
Audio is not clear.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Muthusekkar. Yeah.
I just want to tell, I think the evaluation has to be on the total cost of ownership. It is not just only on the L1 basis, the government tenders, which I have been advocating in all the platforms, that, it has to be on a total cost of ownership. That's the way they have to evaluate.
So if we can have suggestions from VDMA, we will be happy to take it up with DPIIT. Especially the
Sure.
Mr. Muthusekkar suggestion of cost of ownership. This looks very interesting idea. So if we can have those representations, then we will be happy to take it up with DPIIT to see if it can be incorporated in Make in India public procurement policy.
Sure. What we can do there, and I would also request our members who are here, who have joined this webinar, if there are certain issues, please write to us. We can compile it together and then discuss with the Consul and put it up to Invest India. There are some points we have already received, but if others are there, please feel free to write to us so that we can compile it together and put it up to Invest India. Thank you. That's a good suggestion. We will take that forward. Another interesting question, Uday, on what you mentioned earlier also. How does a company in India with more than 55% German stake qualify for the PPP or other projects with definition of Indian company in the Atma Nirbhar Bharat scheme?
Sir, any domestic company which is registered and incorporated in India is considered, whether it is having an FDI or it is not having an FDI, it is considered as a domestic company. So it has to be registered in India. So extent of foreign ownership, it doesn't matter. So even if it is a wholly owned subsidiary of a foreign company and it is registered in India and manufacturing, it will be considered as a domestic company for the for the purposes of public procurement preferential Make in India policy.
Yeah.
Yes, Rahul. You would like to?
I would like to add one point here. That is absolutely correct. And the only thing where we have to be a little bit careful is if it is a Chinese shareholding. Then we have again a problem with the participation in global tenders. So the moment if the ultimate beneficiary or the direct beneficiary is under control of a Chinese entity, then we get some issues here. But otherwise, if it is 51% control is already okay. But any Indian entity is substantial, insufficient.
Right. Thank you, Rahul. Uday, one more interesting question. This is the question from DGH Edelwecker. So, which has an office. It's a German company having an office in Bangalore. Now, they supply special steel to BHEL, and they have been doing that for many years there. But after introduction of the Atma Nirbhar Bharat scheme, now BHEL has completely stopped floating tenders on overseas vendors. So actually during the year 2020, no tenders were floated to overseas vendors. Uday.
So, sir, actually, there is one announcement which was made that any tender up to 200 crore rupees will be given only to a domestic company, and there will be no global tender for that. However, in that there was a clause that if there is no capacity in India, then representation can be made to DPIIT that there is no other manufacturer available in India, then that can be considered. So in fact, DPIIT is inviting industry associations to make the representations where there no capacity is existing for manufacturing in India, so that they can take it up with the relevant ministry, and then the message can be passed on, and relaxation can be given to those products. So
Okay.
if you have, we will request you if you can collate those items where there is no capacity existing in the country, we can make the representation to DPIIT that these are the products where there is no capacity, so those products need relaxation. However, in future we should try our best to create those capacities in India. So we can invite those companies who are currently serving from outside India to set up their bases in India. And there, as you know, there are a lot of incentive policies which are coming now to encourage make in India, like production linked incentive. Bonded manufacturing is one scheme which is quite unique in the country, which has come for the first time, which is there present as a global concept. So all the companies can utilize all these schemes and set up base. So we can give a plan that currently there are no capacity, so please give exemption, but in future these capacities can come to India.
Right, right.
Mm.
Rahul, you had a query or a
Yeah, I think the problem will be here
comment to
not
that?
because they have yeah, to the same topic. I think the issue of this particular company is not because of the global tender issue, because they have they qualify as a Indian entity because they have their company in India, most probably. I think the problem is here the local content. And creating the local content should be really revisited, because this is getting more and more a hurdle for German companies, because the core competence and the core technology lies in the component which is imported. And Mr. Uday, I would really request to reconsider these factors of local content, because we are probably as I said earlier in my presentation, we understand where the government of India is coming, but the need of such high products are as well on Indian side, and we are cutting down the Indian supply and opportunities here for India. So the local content is additionally really to look to.
Yes, I think thank you, Rahul, for bringing this issue, because there are quite a few questions which are related to the content. So, would you like to comment, Uday, on that?
Again, we will request if representations can be, detailed representations can be made as to why local
Okay.
content cannot be made in India. We can take it up with DPIIT.
Okay. Rahul, there's a question from one of the German companies which are attending this webinar. What are the preconditions to get into the 15% tax bracket?
Okay, first of all, it has to be a company, a private limited company incorporated after October 2019. then there are several additional conditions. It should not be a restructuring. That means you cannot simply incorporate a new company and then transfer the assets of the existing company to the new company. That would disqualify then again. Then there's a condition that you should have at least, I think, more than 50% of newly procured machines and assets. So several points, but whoever wants, there are logics where you can work around. For example, if the particular member company has, as of now, a trading company or a service company, it can be well justified to incorporate a new company and under this shelf to start a new manufacturing.
Right, right.
It is actually something which we are doing a lot right now, but it is very, very difficult, and it is not difficult, but you have to be very particular in how to set it up, because otherwise there are this general avoidance rule, tax avoidance rules, which can kick in and so on. So handle it with care.
Right. Right. There is one more question which is interesting. I think I'm not sure whether Uday is still online, but maybe I can address it to the other panelists. We, being a German company with 100% stake from Germany, are unable to get registered in NSIC. The reason being we are a MNC. In spite, we are registered as MSME. Also, we have bigger manufacturing plans too in the future. As such, in spite of being a local company, we miss out on the benefits as given to MSMEs. So the question is not very clear. I think the problem is he's not able to get registered. Anyway, I think we'll address that.
Mr. Nath,
maybe
probably.
Yeah, I think we'll require a little more. Yes.
I think that is not an easy question, because it might be that they are over the threshold, which the MSME regulation is stipulating, or it might be only a technical issue. The member company is free to contact me.
Right. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Muthusekkar. Yes.
Yeah, it must be on the memorandum of article also what they have written. So that also matters. Like, for example, being a MNC and a manufacturing company, but here they want to be an assembly or a trading company in India. So the memorandum of article, what they have written, I think that also matters or comes in a hurdle for registration.
But can be changed.
Yeah.
We have to look into why it gets rejected.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Maybe the final question I would like to put to both Mr. Muthusekkar and Mr. Chintawar. Now, with the Atma Nirbhar Bharat package, actually the MSME, it should help to strengthen the MSMEs in India. And this in turn, Mr. Chintawar as well as Mr. Muthusekkar, many of these MSMEs would be your suppliers also. So in turn, it can benefit the German companies also, which are using the MSMEs as the suppliers. So are you already finding some changes happening in the MSME structure with your suppliers? Maybe we'll start with you, Mr. Muthusekkar, and then go to Mr. Chintawar.
Yeah, I think first of all, the attitude is changing. Earlier, the attitude was, always looking at the quantities like coming from the automotive, like you always need a 10,000, 20,000 pieces. That's a kind of, lookout was there from the suppliers or vendors. After the automobile, slowdown in the last 2 years, I think the shift has taken place, and they have understood that there are evergreen industries which are, continuously growing. And, if we have to enter global market, then, we need to go through this German companies. So that attitude and approach is changing, number one. Number two is, I think they have also understood the global standard requirements. We may think that MSMEs are not today in the digital world. I think they have all the documentation, all the data information available for them. So they are also climbing up the ladder and reaching the level for meeting the global standard requirements. And of course, in the national interest, in the interest of the industry, in the interest of the society, it is our job also to bring them up. And then as a German company, we are all responsible to uplift the standards.
Thank you, Mr. Muthusekkar. Yes, Mr. Chintawar. Mr. Chintawar, you are muted. If you could unmute yourself.
Okay, understood. So am I audible now? Yeah. So I will speak. I will speak more with reference to automobile industry. See, under this Atma Nirbhar Bharat, there are some good background situations at the moment which are fostering the Atma Nirbhar initiative. Yeah, particularly two things. One is the geopolitical situation and also the uncertainty due to Corona. So there is a massive emphasis by OEMs to facilitate localization activity and also combining the localization with export. That means this is a conducive atmosphere for such initiatives, and MSMEs are really gearing up. They are coming forward. They see that these localization initiative will be brought to the end, and it will turn out into a business opportunities, not only on a, let's say, just a theoretical initiative. And hence the response from MSMEs on such localization is quite good. There are also support being given. For example, if there is something to be validated, something, some endurance trials, some validation, or some technical expertise, it is also being offered. So there is a hand-holding also to the MSMEs, and also with this motivation, the response from MSME is quite good, and it's going to be good success.
Thank you, Mr. Chintawar. So friends, although we have some more questions, but I think we are already run over time, so we'll close the session now. And I think as Uday suggested, in fact, Rahul, in your presentation, you also brought forth a few critical points. So maybe I would request we could work together on this, Rahul. If from Roedl Partners side, you could compile a nice document, and together we will also compile then the feedback we get from the members out of this webinar, and together with the consulate also we'll discuss this, and then I think we can we would like to suggest those points or hand over the points then to Invest India to look into some of the issues of the German companies. Uday, is that okay? Maybe in 2 or 3 or 4 weeks time we would get back with some of the key pointers or some issues raised by the German companies on basis of the discussion today. So with that, thank you. With that, I would like to thank all our speakers, Dr. Juergen Morhard especially. I think he really set the tone and he initiated this discussion. Also, I would like to thank Mr. Bagla for being there today and addressing the audience. Also, Mr. Sood for his presentation there. Thank you also for taking the critical part. I think the questions, which are the critical part, you were in the firing line, so you have taken the shots that were directed at you. And Rahul, as usual, an excellent presentation. I think much beyond just looking at the framework of Atma Nirbhar, you could really point out some critical issues where the government may need to rethink on certain points beyond the euphoria of Atma Nirbhar Bharat, I think. And these are good insights, I think, when we present it as the German industry. I think it can be a win-win situation for both the sides. Also, Mr. Muthusekkar and Mr. Chintawar, thank you for sharing your own experience. And I think these are the experiences that really count, how German companies can benefit and how German companies are striving towards Make in India and towards whether we frame it Make in India 2.0. But I think what is important is the confidence of the German industry in the Indian market. And all the participants, thank you for joining us in large numbers. In fact, we had some participants also joining in from Germany, although it was pretty early for them to join, but we had almost over 150 participants who joined in this event. So thank you to all the participants for being there. and we will take the initiative. VDMA will drive this initiative forward with the support, with the feedback from the members and with the support of Roedl and partner and the consulate. So we will frame up these points and send it to Invest in India. Friends, before I conclude, let me just conclude with a quote from the famous German philosopher, Max Müller, who was also a very well-known Indologist. He said, "If I were to ask under what sky the human mind has fully developed some of his choicest gifts, has deeply pondered over the greatest problems of life, and has found a solution to most of them, I would point to India." So with that, friends, thank you very much. Stay well, stay safe, and wish you all the success in the last month, in the last phase of the financial year 2021. I see a smile on Mr. Muthusekkar's and Mr. Chintawar's face, so those are good signs for the German industry. So let us continue to strive towards building a strong Indo-German fraternity, a strong Indo-German business here in India. Thank you, friends. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Was a pleasure again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.